Sarah awoke on the stall floor. Dazed, she whispered, "What happened?" with no sense of how long she'd been out. She pushed herself up and staggered out. The rain had stopped. The one bathroom light was back, flickering, sickly, impatient. She made it to the sinks and leaned over, and the odor rising from her sweater grabbed her by the lungs. A burnt offering left too long in a place no one prayed anymore. Greasy smoke and old ash alive in the fabric, forcing its way into her mouth like it belonged there. She yanked the sweater up and over her head. As it dragged past her eyes and ears, she heard it, a faint whisper, close as breath, saying her name. Sarah's heart raced as she stood frozen, scanning the empty room. Not willing to spend another second in that wrong, watching air, she sprinted out of the women's room, the sweater clenched tight in one fist. Sarah returned to the baggage room with fear and dread written across her face. She burst through the doors like someone or something had stalked her every step. "Sarah, are you okay?" a junior TSA officer called out. "You look like hell's been after you." Sarah looked up with a stuttering gaze, not knowing where to nod, where to look, like her head couldn't agree with her eyes. "Checkpoint was trying to reach you," the junior officer said. "I told them you had to step away for a moment." "How long was I gone?" Sarah's voice trembled, thin and shaken. "A little over an hour," he told her, "but everything's in order." Then he hesitated, a half smirk tugging at his mouth. "I do have some bad news to pass along. Looks like we've got a delay, and we only need a few people to stay behind." Sarah knew that meant her. As the baggage supervisor, she and at least one junior officer would be stuck working overtime. Her soul screamed at her to get out of that place, now, but she forced herself to remember her vacation. She clung to it like a lifeline, and a small, shaky bit of light returned to her eyes. The night grew older. Time came closer and closer for Sarah to escape what seemed to be more of an actual graveyard shift than a place of employment. As overtime quickly approached, Sarah stepped away to call her husband to inform him that she would be leaving work a little late. Sarah, not wanting to go too far from the living beings that were natural in this world, made her call in the corner of the baggage room. Sarah, drained of energy, glanced at her phone and saw the battery hovering on the brink of death like her soul. She called her husband anyway. The phone rang once. "Hello, love," he answered, joy bright in his voice. He sounded just as excited as she was before about their vacation tomorrow. Sarah swallowed. "Well, it looks like there's a small delay tonight," she said. "So I'll be leaving a little late," she added, sharing the unforeseen consequences with her husband. "Sorry to hear that," her husband replied, "but hey, tomorrow will make it worth it." The words brought a little confidence back to Sarah. "This day has been the strangest thing ever," Sarah said, dread in her voice, not wanting to share too much and make him worry. "When you come home, I'll have a late dinner waiting and a bath drawn for you," he said, "so you can rest, sleep well, and wake up refreshed and energetic tomorrow morning." He didn't realize his words only made Sarah more eager to escape the grip of the night. "I'll see you when my shift is over. My phone's battery is low, so I need to put it on the charger. Love you," Sarah explained. "Okay. Love you too. See you soon," her husband replied as static crept in over his last three words. Time passed, and overtime finally greeted Sarah in a familiar way. A flicker of envy stirred in her chest as she watched the remaining baggage room officers clock out and leave. The thought of the delay sat in her eyes like mud. 1 more hour, she told herself. Now she was stuck working overtime with a lead officer who'd come down from checkpoint to help. She'd enjoyed working with him before. He considered himself an amateur comedian, and yeah, some of his jokes were on the dirty side, but Sarah knew he was just trying to breathe life into a dead-end career. "Hey, Sarah," Officer Edward, the lead working overtime with her, said. "Looks like we've got a delay, but it won't be so bad." Sarah sighed. "It would be better if the airlines could just be on time. Let me guess, Jet West again?" "Right again," Edward replied. Officer Edward assured Sarah he'd handle any jams in the system. The two of them stood in the baggage room, peering through the large glass windows that divided them from the larger, more complicated machinery beyond, where oversized luggage rolled through the scanners and disappeared into the humming belts. 30 minutes in, the two sat quietly, waiting for time to pass. Edward was especially quiet tonight, Sarah thought to herself. Must have run out of jokes, ending a career he never really started. Sarah found herself locked on the clock. Knowing the night was almost over, she began gathering her belongings. She picked up several items she wanted to take home, including her sweater, and set everything on the table where she and Edward were sitting. Then she stepped away to check her work email before vacation. A moment later, Edward mentioned he was getting cold. The AC was cranked to keep the equipment in the baggage room cool. With his smaller frame, he asked Sarah if she'd mind him using her sweater. Sarah, focused on her emails, didn't think much of it. "Sure, go ahead," she said. Edward slipped the sweater over his thin frame. Just then, the baggage jam alarm blared. Edward and Sarah rose from their seats almost simultaneously. "I got it," Edward said, staring through the glass into the adjacent room. "Thanks," Sarah replied. A small flicker of joy returned as the clock ticked closer to the end of her shift. Edward headed into the next room toward the alarming machinery while Sarah watched through the glass. But as he approached, the alarm cut off. Edward glanced back over his shoulder and met her eyes, a slight smile on his face. The gesture soothed Sarah. She smiled back, silently thanking him for taking the eerie edge off the night. Sarah's personal phone began to ring. She didn't hesitate. She expected it to be her husband. "Hello?" she said. A voice answered, low and casual. "Hey, Sarah, sorry to bother you on your personal phone. Your work phone kept going straight to voicemail. This is Edward, by the way." Sarah let out a warm chuckle and looked up at Edward in the next room. "You know you're not supposed to be on your phone in there, even on Bluetooth. Management can still be watching you on the cameras," she said. Edward kept looking back at her through the glass, that same small smile on his face. On Sarah's phone, his voice replied, "I hope management isn't watching me at home." "If you call this place home," Sarah laughed. "What's up?" she said. Since you're my immediate supervisor, I wanted to let you know I'll be off for the next few days for a couple appointments," Edward explained. "Just come back into the baggage room and I'll sign your paperwork," Sarah replied. As she spoke, still watching him through the glass, something cold slipped into her stomach. Even though Edward's voice was in her ear, talking back and forth with her, his mouth wasn't moving. "I'm not at work," Edward replied. "Are you?" Sarah began to tremble. Words barely escaped her mouth. You're working overtime with me right now, right?" "What are you talking about?" Edward said. "TSA is shut down already. There was no overtime tonight." His tone shifted, cautious. "Sarah, are you feeling okay?" That was when the lights in the machinery room began to darken, one flicker at a time, until the space behind the glass started to fade to black. Sarah's call cut out. Her screen flashed, "No service." Panic set in as the baggage room dimmed with it. She kept staring at the glass. Then she saw it. Behind the window, tapetum lucidum eyeshine hovered. No face, no outline, only the hard return of light. It stared straight at Sarah, unblinking. Slowly, inhumanly, it moved toward the door that led into the baggage room. She felt fear rip through her body, striking every nerve ending at once. Sarah screamed like she wanted her voice to reach heaven, then sprinted for the exit, yanking and pounding at the unyielding door. Tears crowded her eyes and blurred her vision, as if they themselves were trying to escape the very terror that stalked Sarah. Her heart went feral, like it was trying to flee her chest and faint somewhere safe. Sarah cowered by the door, hoping she would wake from this nightmare, but the fear itself reminded her that her light was fading with the night. The door leading from the machinery room into the baggage room slowly crept open, and only darkness emerged from behind it. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, as if she already knew Japan was just a dream, too good to be true. Several hours passed. Sarah's husband grew worried and called her cell phone over and over, only to be met with constant ringing, each time ending the same way, with nothing but his wife's voice on voicemail. Madness finally drove him to the airport to check on his wife. When he arrived, he rushed to find someone who could help him figure out where Sarah was. With no TSA agents in sight, he looked for airport police. Outside, he spotted an officer making rounds and hurried over, worry written all over his face. "Excuse me, officer," he said. "My wife works for TSA. She told me she'd be leaving a few hours ago after working a delayed flight." His voice shook with concern. "I've called her several times, but it just keeps ringing, then going straight to voicemail." The officer frowned. "There wasn't a delayed flight tonight. TSA closed at the usual time." Sarah's husband felt his stomach drop. "That doesn't make sense," he said. "I can locate her phone." He pulled it up and showed the officer. "It still says she's here." The officer looked at Sarah's husband's phone and recognized the area from the map. "Her phone shows she's still in the TSA baggage room," he said, confusion pulling at his face. "I'm not sure why she'd still be on the grounds." Trained to keep people calm, the officer reassured him there was no need to panic. "She may just be catching up on work. Could you provide me with her description?" Sarah's husband gave a description of his wife as if she were standing right in front of him. "Wait here," the officer added. "I'll go check and I'll have her contact you immediately." He radioed to dispatch and reported the situation. When the officer reached the baggage room, he could see the lights were off inside. He entered, flipped them on, and looked around, only to be greeted by still air. He took a few steps and felt something under his boot. He looked down. A cell phone lay on the floor, forgotten. To make things easier, the officer requested dispatch pull up the baggage room cameras. Knowing TSA's closing time, he gave dispatch a time frame to search. "Stand by," dispatch replied. A few moments passed, then dispatch came back over the radio. "Dispatch to AP 255? "Go ahead, dispatch," the officer replied. "Can you repeat your inquiry?" dispatch asked, staring at the monitor, confusion in their voice. The officer explained again, giving dispatch a full description of Sarah. Dispatch paused, then came back over the radio. "AP 255, are you currently in the TSA baggage room?" "I am," he replied. Dispatch read the description back. "To confirm, female, white, blonde hair in a bun, TSA uniform, light blue button-down shirt, dark blue pants, approximately 5'9". "That's correct," the officer said. "Stand by," dispatch replied again, this time with a slightly irritated, confused edge. 2 minutes passed. It felt longer. The officer's patience began to fray as he waited on dispatch. "Anything for me, dispatch?" the officer asked. A beat of silence, then dispatch came back, voice low. "AP 255, she's standing right next to you." The officer froze. When he spoke, there was a pause in his voice. "There's no one else in this room but me." Then he remembered he could view the camera feed on his work phone. He pulled up the security camera app and started to log in, his hands trembling with unease. Once he was in, he searched for the camera assigned to the baggage room. When the footage finally loaded, the officer went still, petrified. Just as dispatch had told him, he could see Sarah standing right next to him. She was there, present in her own absence. The officer shot a quick glance to his side, eyes widening. No one else was in the room with him, at least not by what his own eyes could prove. A chill ran through every nerve in his body as he began to notice it, a cold spot hanging right beside him. The lights started to flicker again. He didn't waste another moment. He dashed for the back door, then struggled to get it open, kicking and pounding as if the room had just caught fire behind him. And then he felt it, a presence at his back. The same burnt offering smell swelled stronger, thicker, closer. "Help!" he screamed, pure terror in his voice. Just then, the doors sprang open and the officer sprinted out. As he ran, he heard them slam shut behind him, like the room had decided no one would be allowed in again. Because darkness doesn't crave darkness. It craves light so it can swallow it.